Dear God, there's a little girl in there, Maya William cried out, her voice cracking with panic. Her hand shot toward the 5th-floor window where smoke curled in thick, angry ribbons. Inside the window, a tiny silhouette beat frantically against the glass. Sophie, 5 years old. Brownie-eyed, ponytailed, always clutching that stuffed unicorn with the pink horn. She played near Duke's Diner almost every day, skipping chalk-drawn hopscotch squares right by Maya's busboy station windows. Sometimes she waved shyly. Sometimes she left dandelions on Maya's bench. Maya always smiled back, careful never to let the child sense her hunger or exhaustion. Sophie was a bright piece of innocence in a world that had not been gentle lately. Now Sophie's small face was distorted in terror behind smoke-stained glass, her mouth open in a soundless scream. She was already out the door. Her heart pounded not from fear, but urgency. Behind her, the diner's manager, Pete Carson, thick fingers grabbing Maya's wrist hard enough to bruise. "Maya, stop right there. Are you crazy?" he shouted. "You go in there and die. This place is shut down. We get sued. Don't be stupid, girl." Maya tried to wrench free, but Pete yanked harder. The shock of it threw her off balance. Her feet slipped on the curb edge. She crashed to the pavement, her knee scraping the concrete so deep it burned raw. Pain shot up her thigh, sharp enough to steal her breath. Maya stared up at him, the grit of asphalt digging into her palms, her scraped knee throbbing. Somewhere inside, shame stabbed, shame that she let someone drag her like trash, that the world saw her as disposable, that she had grown used to it. Then a scream tore through the air, high-pitched, desperate, the kind only a terrified child could make. "Sophie," Maya's heart sized. That sound cut through everything: fear, pain, humiliation like lightning splits a storm. "Let me go," she whispered. Pete hissed. "You ain't a hero. You're nobody. Let the fire department deal with it." Maya pushed herself up, ignoring the sting in her knee. Smoke thickened by the second. The front door of the building belched flames. Heat punched outward like a furnace. Firefighters weren't here yet. A crowd formed, helpless and horrified. A man screamed, "My baby! My baby's inside!" It was Sophie's father. A luxury Bentley sat haphazardly at the curb. Door flung open. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Sophie! Daddy's here. Hold on." He wasn't calm. He wasn't powerful. He was a father unraveling. Maya scanned the building desperately. The front route was lost to flame. The back exit, too much smoke. Then she spotted it: fire escape ladders and balconies stacked up the side of the brick building like a steel spine. She saw a maintenance worker's bucket abandoned nearby inside, a heavy steel hammer. Maya grabbed it. Pete shrieked, "Maya, are you insane? It's everybody's problem if we let it be nobody's," she whispered. She limped but climbed up the railing, up the emergency ladder. Her injured knee throbbed, but she climbed faster. People gasped. "She's climbing. Somebody stop her. Girl, you're gonna die up there. She's crazy." But when a life is burning, reason is luxury. Smoke swirled around her. Sparks floated like fireflies gone mad. At the 5th-floor landing, she stopped not because she needed to, but because she saw her path. Sophie's apartment was below, but flames devoured the lower balconies. The 5th-floor wall above Sophie's unit faced the child's room. Maya braced her feet, gripped the hammer with both hands, and swung. Concrete didn't give easily. Her arms shook, her lungs screamed. She coughed so hard her ribs ached, but she swung again. And again, every strike echoed off brick and fear. "She's breaking the wall. Lord have mercy. That woman, she's something else." The crowd watched, stunned. Phones raised not to judge this time, but to witness. The father sobbed below, chest heaving, voice hoarse. "Please, please save my daughter." A crack. A fracture. A hole blasted through drywall and insulation. Smoke burst outward. Maya shielded her face, then hammered again, until she could squeeze through. Heat scorched her exposed skin. She crawled into darkness and fire. Inside, she found Sophie curled under a desk, crying for her mommy. Maya wrapped her in her apron and whispered, voice trembling but sure, "I've got you, sweetheart. Hold on to me." Then the flames shifted, roaring, hungry, angry that their prize was being taken away. Maya dragged Sophie toward the hole she'd punched in the world. Outside, people screamed encouragement, prayers, disbelief. She pushed Sophie through first. Strong arms below caught the child. The billionaire father collapsed with his daughter in his arms, sobbing like a broken man. "My baby. Oh, God. My baby." Maya tried to follow, but the building groaned a deep, terrible sound. A beam above her cracked loose and slammed down. The balcony shook violently. Maya lost her grip, slamming back into smoky darkness. Her body hit hard, breath gone, vision exploding in sparks. Dust and heat swallowed her. "Maya!" Voices screamed from below. The hole she'd carved glowed her doorway out, fading behind smoke. She reached, fingers brushing air. Her scraped knee throbbed, her lungs burned. She tried to stand. Couldn't. Another beam cracked. Brick dust rained. Maya's eyelids fluttered. A final breath shuddered past her lips. Hot, painful, defiant. Outside, the father clutched Sophie, tears falling on her hair as firefighters finally arrived in a storm of sirens and water and urgency. "Get her out! Someone get her out!" he roared, pointing at the broken open wall. "She saved my baby. Save her." Maya didn't hear him. The world dimmed into a distant hum. She felt nothing but warmth, not fire's cruel burn. But Sophie's tiny arms earlier. Trust pressed into her ribs. A reminder of why she moved when others froze. Her final thought before darkness swallowed her. Better to burn saving someone than live watching them fall. And the world outside, for a suspended breath, did not see a homeless woman or a bus girl or a forgotten soul. It saw a hero. Then Maya went still. If this story moved you, leave a like and comment where you're watching from. Someone nearby might be watching too. The sky was weeping smoke and sirens. Firefighters moved like clockwork, hoses snaked across the street. Water arced in roaring sprays toward the flames now tearing through the upper levels. The crowd had grown larger. Phones recorded, reporters arrived. But no one was looking at their screens anymore. They were looking up, looking at the shattered fifth-floor wall, looking for her. "Maya, she's still in there," someone screamed. "She didn't make it out." Paramedic teams rushed Sophie to an ambulance. Her tiny arm still trembled, but her voice had found strength. "Where's the lady?" she asked, again and again. "Where's the lady who saved me?" Lucas Bennett, the billionaire known for empire, suits, and steel love-nerve deals, stumbled alongside the gurney. His daughter's hand was locked around his fingers, as if letting go would send her back into the fire. His other hand pressed against his chest like it hurt to breathe. "She's coming," he whispered, more to himself than to Sophie. "She has to be coming." But the smoke didn't give up names. The fire didn't apologize. On the fifth floor, firefighters climbed fast. "We got a civilian trapped," one shouted into the radio. Female, mid to late 20s, went in from outside through the wall. Last seen in or near bedroom 2B. The hole Maya had carved gaped open, still warm, edges blackened with soot. Inside, heat lingered like breath. A firefighter pulled himself through, eyes sweeping the haze. "I got visual," he called out. She was there, collapsed, motionless, half buried under fallen drywall and ash. One arm extended toward the opening like she'd been reaching, crawling, refusing to quit. Her apron was charred, blood on her forehead, but her chest faintly, gratefully was rising. "She's alive." The man radioed down as others cleared the way, lifted her gently, passed her to safety. Below, as they emerged onto the ladder with Maya cradled like a fallen angel, a collective gasp spread through the crowd. "That's her." "Nah. Oh my God, she did it. She's the one who climbed the damn building." Lucas ran toward the medics. "That's her?" His voice cracked as he looked at her soot-covered face. "Is she breathing?" "She's stable," the medic replied, checking her vitals. "Smoke inhalation, mild concussion, possible cracked ribs. We'll know more once we're at Grady." "Go," Lucas said. "Take her. Do whatever she needs. I'll cover everything." "One." He looked down at Sophie, who nodded solemnly, her voice whisper-thin. "She saved me, Daddy. You gotta help her now." The ambulance sped off. Red lights dancing across broken glass and scorched brick. Maya's body lay still on the stretcher. But her story was already moving faster than any vehicle. Back at the scene, whispers turned into voices. Voices turned into cameras. The fire chief addressed the press. She risked her life, entered a structurally compromised building, climbed 5 stories, used a hammer to breach an exterior wall, without any equipment or backup. She located the child and carried her to safety. That woman is the reason Sophie Bennett is alive. A reporter asked, "Do we know who she is?" "Not yet," the chief said, adjusting his helmet, "but we will." 2 hours later, in a sterile ER room bathed in humming fluorescent light, Maya opened her eyes. Pain arrived first. Her ribs ached with every breath, her knees screamed beneath the bandages, and her throat was raw. But her first thought wasn't about herself. It was the girl. "Sophie," she murmured. "You're awake," a nurse smiled. "She's safe. She's with her family." Maya's eyes fluttered closed in relief. "Good," she whispered. "She's safe." Then she tried to sit up and winced. "Whoa, slow down," the nurse said gently. "You're in the ER. You were unconscious for over an hour. You inhaled a lot of smoke." Do I?" Maya hesitated. "Do I have insurance?" The nurse paused. "Don't worry about that right now." Maya exhaled slowly, staring at the ceiling. "I can't stay long. I don't have anyone to call." The nurse's voice softened. "You've got someone now." That night, the video went viral. Not a polished news report. Not a studio edit. Just a shaky phone recording from the sidewalk of a young black woman climbing a burning building with a hammer in one hand and no harness, no fear. Someone added music to its soft piano. Another overlaid the words, "Hero has no title, just heart." Millions watched. By morning, Maya William had become the face of something much bigger than fire. She was courage. At sunrise, Lucas Bennett stood outside the hospital, dressed in a sweatshirt for the first time in 20 years. Holding a cup of black coffee in both hands like a man holding purpose. His driver waited silently nearby. Inside the hospital, Sophie was resting, but Lucas wasn't there for her this time. He was waiting for the woman who had stepped into a burning building for a child she didn't know. He had built towers in cities, negotiated hostile mergers, flown jets solo across oceans. But none of it had ever made him feel as small or as humbled as watching Maya William disappear into smoke and reappear carrying his daughter. A nurse appeared in the doorway. "She's asking to leave," she said. Lucas stood. "Not without talking to me first." The nurse nodded. "I think she's going to want to hear what you have to say." Inside, Maya sat at the edge of the hospital bed, still in a hospital gown, her scraped knee exposed beneath the thin blanket. Her hair was messy, her face pale under the soot, but her eyes were clear, tired, alert, ready to disappear again. Lucas stepped into the room. He removed his baseball cap, uncharacteristically nervous. Then he spoke. "You saved my daughter," he said quietly. "And I don't think the English language has invented the words I need to say thank you." Maya blinked. "She's okay?" "She's perfect. Because of you." Lucas paused. Then, the man who built empires said with trembling sincerity, "You didn't just save her, Miss William. You saved me, too." Maya looked down at her hand, still scraped, still shaking. "I was just the only one who moved." Lucas stepped forward. "Exactly." She said nothing, but her silence held weight. Something unspoken, something sacred. Lucas took a breath. "I came to offer you something. Not a handout, not charity. A chance." Maya raised her eyes slowly, curious, guarded. He nodded. "Let me explain." The room was quiet enough to hear the hum of the fluorescent light, the faint beeping of the heart monitor, the soft whoosh of oxygen moving through tubes down the hall. Maya sat very still, the thin hospital blanket gathered in her lap, her fingers absently searching for something to hold on to that wasn't there. For a moment she was simply breathing, tasting the last traces of smoke on her tongue. The world still feeling unreal. Too bright around the edges. Lucas Bennett stood across from her. Tall, broad-shouldered. A face that newspapers called steely. Though right now he looked anything but. His eyes bloodshot from the night, damp at the edges, held the same worry a parent carries even after a nightmare ends, the kind that lingers. I meant what I said, he began, voice low and measured. You didn't just pull my daughter out of that fire. You changed everything for us. Maya looked away. Compliments never sat comfortably on her skin. They slid, awkward, and unfamiliar, like expensive clothes she couldn't afford. I didn't do it for a reward, she murmured, voice rough from smoke and exhaustion. I know, he said. That's why you deserve one. Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. People do crazy things in emergencies. Doesn't make them saints. No, Lucas agreed, stepping closer. It makes them brave. And good. He paused. And rare. Maya swallowed hard. Praise felt like a weight she didn't know how to carry. She tugged gently at her hospital bracelet, as if trying to loosen it. Can I leave now? She asked softly. I don't want to take up a bed someone else needs. You're not taking up space, Lucas replied. You're recovering, and I already took care of the bill. Maya's head snapped up. What? I told the hospital to put it under my account. No one's sending you a bill. Maya stiffened. I didn't ask you to do that. You didn't have to. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two people from different planets, colliding in the strangest gravity. I don't want charity, Maya whispered. I'm not offering charity. His voice dropped, soft and earnest. I'm offering respect. And then, because fate has a cruel sense of humor, Pete Carson burst into the doorway, sweat-stained polo and all. His voice came loud, blustering. Not from concern, but panic. Maya, you can't just walk out on your shift like that. I got customers asking where you've been, and he froze. His eyes landed on Lucas's tailored coat, half-zipped hoodie. Watch worth more than Pete's car. On the way, Lucas turned slowly. Gaze like cold glass. Pita swallowed. Hard. You must be her boss, Lucas said politely, though his tone could have cut steel. Pete fumbled. Yeah, well, I mean, she does odd jobs at my place. She's lucky I gave her. Lucas lifted one finger. Just one. Pete's voice died mid-sentence. Respect? Fear? Hard to say. Sometimes they wear the same coat. This woman, Lucas said, saved my daughter's life. She climbed 5 stories. She broke through a concrete wall. She walked into a burning building when grown men stood and filmed. Pete's face whitened. You pulled her back, Lucas continued quietly. You put her at risk, Pete stammered. It was a liability issue. Lucas's gaze hardened, voice steady as stone. I'll cover her wages. Consider her employment terminated. Kindly leave. Pete opened his mouth, then closed it. He backed out like someone leaving a church wrongfully entered. Yes, sir, he sputtered. Of course. Have a good day. When he was gone, Maya let out a shaky exhale she didn't realize she'd been holding. Lucas turned back to her, his expression softening. You don't work for men like that anymore. Maya blinked, the world shifting under her feet again. Anymore? He nodded. I want you at my company. Nigh. She stared at him, as if he'd spoken a language she barely remembered. Doing what? Washing windows? Pulling weeds? Cleaning floors? No. His voice warmed. Leading. Maya wet her lips. I don't have a degree anymore. I don't have money. I don't even have a place to sleep most nights. None of that defines you, he said gently. I saw who you are in firelight. She froze. The words landed like a blow. It continued. Quieter now. I run the Bennett Foundation Community Housing, family programs, and I don't need another executive in a suit telling me what a neighborhood needs. I need someone who knows what it feels like to be ignored, to be talked down to fight anyway. Maya swallowed, throat thick. People like me don't get offers like that. People like you create reasons they should, he replied. Her eyes stung. Smoke, exhaustion, or something else. Please, Lucas added, almost humbly. Let me help you build something that makes this city safer for kids like Sophie, for women like you. Silence settled again, the kind heavy as church pew wood. Maya looked down at her scraped hands. They trembled slightly, the tremor of adrenaline fading, the trembling of a lifetime resurfacing. In her chest, 2 instincts wrestled. Run or rise. She had always chosen survival, not hope. Hope wasn't safe. But then she heard a soft voice in her memory, her mother's warm and worn. Courage isn't loud, baby. Sometimes it's just breathing and standing when the world don't want you to. Maya lifted her eyes. I don't know if I can do this. Lucas smiled soft, real. Then do it scared. I'll walk with you. She closed her fists, breathed once, twice, the kind of breath you take before stepping into fire. Okay, she whispered. I'll try. Lucas's relief broke like dawn across his face. Good. You start by healing. And then, we change lives. Maya nodded slowly, a fragile ascent, a trembling beginning. Somewhere down the hall, a child laughed. Somewhere outside, morning light crept through windows like grace. And in the quiet hum of monitors and hope, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility, but before she could speak again, the door opened and the first reporter shoved a microphone toward her face. Miss William, are you the woman in the fire video? Flash, do you consider yourself a hero? Flash, what's your message to America? Flash, and just like that, the world rushed in. Not with flames this time, with attention, and attention can burn too. Flashbulbs burst like sparks from the fire she had just escaped. Microphones pushed toward her face. Hands reached, voices collided, each desperate to claim a piece of her story. Maya, look this way. Oh, how does it feel to be America's hero? People online are calling you the Black Angel of Atlanta. What do you say to that? She flinched, instinctively lifting an arm as if shielding herself from falling debris again. The hospital lights felt too bright. Too much like flames reflecting off glass. Her pulse kicked hard. Her breath stalled somewhere between ribs and memory. She was back in smoke, lungs tight, vision burning. Lucas stepped between her and the chaos like a human wall. Back up. She needs space. His voice was calm but sharp enough to cut through noise. She just came out of a fire. Let her breathe. But reporters smelled story the way fire smells oxygen. They couldn't help rushing toward it. Mr. Bennett, are you confirming she saved your daughter? Is she joining your foundation? Is this the start of a public partnership? Public, partnership, hero, angel. Words flew like embers, beautiful until they touched real skin. Maya's body tensed, her scraped knee throbbing. She swallowed hard. The air felt thick again, her chest tightening with old fear, the kind born not from flames, but from being seen too clearly. When life had taught you the world rarely held softness for people like you, attention didn't feel like praise. It felt like threat. Lucas looked at her, voice low. You don't have to speak. I'll handle this. But she remembered Sophie's small hand clinging to her shirt. Remembered fire licking at her back. She had walked into flames for a child. Surely she could stand in light for a moment longer. She lifted her chin. Her voice was soft, but it carried. I didn't do it to be seen, she said. I did it because a child needed help, and nobody moved. The room stilled. Camera shutters paused. Even the reporters leaned closer, waiting for more. I'm no hero, she continued. I'm just someone who refused to watch a little girl burn. A long breath, shaky but honest. It shouldn't take a miracle for people to care. Silence fell heavy, like dust after a ceiling collapse. That truth, raw and unpolished, landed harder than any headline. Lucas placed a protective hand near her shoulder, not touching, just presence. A guard, not a savior. That's all for now, he said firmly. She needs rest. Hospital security moved in, cameras lowered, questions died into whispers. Maya wasn't sure whether to feel relief or regret as the commotion faded. She sat back down slowly, ribs pulling, knee aching. For a moment, the only sound was the rhythmic beep of the monitor, steady, patient, indifferent. You handled that beautifully, Lucas murmured. I handled it poorly, she said, voice tight. I sounded angry. You sounded human. Maya looked down at her bandaged hands. Smoke still clung to her skin in places, like sorrow that hadn't washed off yet. People don't like when someone like me sounds angry, she whispered. They call it attitude. Or threat. Lucas studied her face, not pitying, but learning. Then they've been listening to the wrong world. Maya didn't answer. She wasn't sure she believed yet in new worlds. But she believed in Sophie's little arms, and the sound of the girl's laugh echoing from a room down the hall. That was a start. Minutes passed. Nurses returned. A doctor checked her chest and ribs. "You'll feel sore for days," he said kindly. "But you're lucky." Lucky. A word with sharp edges. Surviving shouldn't feel like luck, but sometimes it did. As he left, Maya gathered her things, what little there were. A plastic bag with her clothes. A dented phone. A bus ticket stub. She moved slowly, grounding herself with each careful breath. When she stood, Lucas stepped forward. "I'll drive you," he offered. She shook her head. "I don't have anywhere to go you'd approve of." "Oh, that's exactly why you should come with me," he replied. Maya hesitated. Pride, fear, habit, they all lived in the pause. "I don't want to owe you," she whispered. "You already paid the bill," he said softly, with courage. Her throat tightened. She exhaled slow, steady, surrendering an old instinct, one breath at a time. "Just a ride," she murmured. "For now," he agreed. They walked toward the exit, her limp barely noticeable until the doors slid open and cool morning air greeted them. Outside, the hospital entrance buzzed with quiet life, a nurse smoking, an old veteran arguing with his walker, a mother rocking a newborn swaddled in hope. Life and its messiness continued, indifferent to glory. A sleek black SUV waited. Not a showpiece, just a vehicle that promised safety in metal and glass. Lucas opened the door for her, but she paused, eyes lifting instinctively toward the building behind them, toward the window of Sophie's hospital room. The little girl was there, tiny palms pressed to the glass, smiling through puffy eyes. When she spotted Maya, her whole face brightened. She waved small, joyous, grateful. Maya lifted her hand in return, slow and tender. Her chest tightened not with pain, but something unfamiliar, a warmth that scared her more than the flames had. Hope. A hospital volunteer walked by, carrying a box of donated blankets. He glanced at Maya, recognition flickering. "The world needs more like you," he said simply. Maya looked down, embarrassed. "No," she whispered. "The world needs fewer reasons for people like me to be necessary." He paused, then nodded with genuine understanding. "Maybe you'll help make that happen." "Maybe." She climbed into the SUV, settling against the seat as exhaustion finally claimed its right. Lucas closed the door, walked around, slid into the driver's side. Before pulling away, he looked at her. "This isn't a rescue," he said gently. "This is the beginning." Maya turned her gaze to the window. The hospital grew smaller as they rolled away. Sirens in her memory, applause she never asked for. Fire still breathing somewhere behind her, but ahead? Streets unburned, roads unwritten. The city stretched forward like possibility. She exhaled softly, barely audible. "We'll see." Her voice wasn't doubt. It was the kind of faith survivors use, measured, earned one scar at a time. For the first time in a long while, Maya wasn't walking alone into the unknown. She was being carried toward it. And somewhere deep in her chest, beneath bruises and ash, something stirred awake. A future. The SUV pulled quietly into a gated driveway lined with trimmed hedges and tall oaks that swayed in the early spring breeze. The mansion ahead wasn't the kind that shouted money. It whispered it. Soft, tasteful, timeless. White columns framed the front entrance. The windows glowed with warm yellow light, the kind Maya had always associated with other people's lives, people who had things like casserole dishes and guest bedrooms. She sat in the passenger seat, silent, her hands tucked under her thighs to keep them from trembling. "This is temporary," Lucas said, noticing her eyes lingering on the three-car garage. "Until we figure out your next step." Maya nodded once. Temporary was a word she understood. Every job she'd worked in the last 3 years had started that way. So had every bus ride, every couch borrowed, every borrowed dream. Lucas parked near the side entrance. He turned the engine off but made no move to get out. "There are people in there," Maya said quietly. "Yes, they're not going to like seeing someone like me walk through their hallway." Lucas turned toward her, resting one arm over the steering wheel. "You saved my daughter. Anyone who has a problem with you in my home can find the door." Maya looked at him, searching for even a flicker of condescension, of showmanship. She didn't find it. Still, her body remained tense, caught between fight and flee. Lucas stepped out first. As he rounded the car to open her door, the front porch light clicked on. An older woman stepped out, African American, maybe in her late 60s, dressed in navy house slacks and a cable knit sweater. Her silver hair was swept into a soft bun, and she held a dish towel in one hand. "Maya," Lucas said gently, "this is Mrs. Dolores Green. She runs the household. She's family to us." Dolores looked at Maya with deep, assessing eyes, soft but sharp. "You're the one," she said, her voice low and sure. "The girl who climbed 5 stories like God told her to go get that baby herself." Maya blinked. Dolores gave a quiet nod of approval. "Come in, sugar. You look like your bones are holding a war." Maya stepped out of the car slowly, favoring her left leg, still bruised and stiff. Dolores opened the door without another word, holding it wide. Inside, the house smelled like lemon polish, coffee, and something baking, possibly cinnamon rolls. The foyer opened into a hallway of hardwood floors and high ceilings. Photographs lined the walls. Sophie in pigtails, Lucas at a charity gala, a woman in a blue dress laughing mid-spin, probably Sophie's late mother. Maya's fingers curled around the strap of the small duffel she'd carried from the hospital. "Where do I go?" Lucas looked at Dolores, who gave a small nod. "We've got the guest room ready upstairs. Clean sheets, fresh towels. It's not much, but it's warm." Maya nodded again. "Thank you." Dolores placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, gentle but grounding. "You get a hot bath. Then food. Then sleep. One step at a time. You hear?" Maya's throat tightened. She nodded again, words stuck behind something heavy. Lucas gestured toward the staircase, but Maya paused. Her eyes drifted back toward the front door. Something in her chest tugged an old habit, a self-preservation instinct. Houses like this had always had 2 doors, one to enter through, and one they eventually showed you out of. She turned back. "If I stay tonight," she said carefully, "you're not going to expect something in return later, are you?" Lucas blinked, caught off guard. "No, I don't want anything from you, Maya. Except for you to rest." Dolores spoke next, her voice lower now. "Child, we ain't saving you. You already did the saving. We're just trying not to mess it up." Maya's eyes flickered. That sentence landed differently. She nodded once, and this time, she meant it. Upstairs, the guest room was modest but beautiful. Soft sheets, neutral walls, a small reading lamp glowed by the nightstand, next to a pitcher of water and a glass. Maya sat on the edge of the bed and let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding since the fire. She didn't cry. She didn't know how anymore, but she closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you," into the quiet. Downstairs, Lucas stood by the fireplace in the den, staring at the flames, not angry flames, not wild, not devouring, controlled, contained. He thought of the hole Maya had smashed into the building, how she'd made a door where there wasn't one. He thought about how many people would have stood back and done nothing. Hell, he had stood back. Dolores entered the room, drying her hands. "She's settled." Lucas turned. "What do you think?" Dolores gave him a look. "I think the world finally brought us someone with more fire in her soul than in her past." Lucas gave a small smile. "I want her to take the job. She's gonna say no." "Why?" "Because she's tired of being seen only when she's bleeding." Lucas went quiet. Upstairs, Maya stood at the window in her borrowed flannel pajamas. She looked out at the moonlight cutting through the trees. The house behind her felt too big, too soft, too much like something she hadn't allowed herself to want in years. She whispered into the dark, "Don't trust this too fast." But something deep inside her whispered back, "What if this time, you can?" Morning sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains, casting golden slants across the guest room floor. Maya stirred beneath crisp white sheets, the kind that smelled faintly of lavender and drier heat. For a fleeting second, her eyes opened without fear. No ceiling stains, no cold draft from a cracked window, no shouting outside, just stillness. Then memory returned. The fire, Sophie's face, her own hands, raw and bruised. The noise, the lights, the world calling her a hero, when she still felt like a shadow. She sat up slowly, wincing as her rib protested. Her knee throbbed, dulled by bandages and time. The pajamas Dolores had laid out for her felt too soft, too clean, like she didn't deserve them yet. Maya moved carefully to the window. Outside, the garden was alive with early spring dogwoods in bloom, bees hovering over purple hyacinths, a gardener moving rhythmically through rows of azaleas. The entire scene looked like a postcard, or a life someone else had earned. A knock sounded. "Come in," she called, her voice still gravelly from smoke. Dolores entered with a tray scrambled eggs, wheat toast, sliced oranges, and a mug of tea. "I made it light. You're healing, not feeding an army." Maya smiled faintly. "Thank you. You didn't have to." "Sugar," Dolores interrupted gently, setting the tray on the nightstand. "I didn't raise 3 boys and run 2 kitchens to let a woman get out of bed hungry." Maya chuckled once, surprised by the sound. Dolores sat on the edge of a nearby chair. "Lucas has a meeting this afternoon. He asked if you'd join him." Maya froze with a piece of toast halfway to her mouth. "Join him?" "At the foundation office. Just to look around. No obligations. He said he wanted to show you where he sees your future." "My future?" Maya's voice sounded foreign in her own ears. "I've never even seen my next month." Dolores nodded slowly, as if she understood more than Maya said. "People like you, who carry whole cities on their backs without asking for thanks, sometimes you forget what it's like to walk without weight." Maya looked down at her hands. "I'm just tired of walking in circles." "Then maybe it's time someone built you a road." After breakfast and a slow, cautious shower, Maya dressed in the clothes Lucas had left for her: dark jeans, a soft cotton blouse, and a lightweight jacket that still had the store tag inside the pocket. As she stepped into the hallway, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. No longer the woman who bussed tables under flickering diner lights. Not quite the woman the world thought she was, either. Somewhere in between. Becoming. Downstairs, Lucas stood by the front door, phone in hand, a sleek portfolio tucked under his arm. He glanced up when he saw her, eyes quickly flicking over her form, not with judgment, but confirmation. Relief, even. "You look good," he said. "I look like I slept in someone else's life," she replied. Lucas offered a small, knowing smile. "Maybe you just finally found a life that fits." The drive to the Bennett Foundation headquarters took less than 20 minutes, but Maya watched the city blur past like she was seeing it for the first time. Billboards, buses, people, all moving, all surviving. It looked different through tinted windows and leather seats. The building was nestled downtown, a modern glass structure with clean lines, and a large copper plaque near the entrance that read, "Bennett Foundation. Building Tomorrow's Promise." A doorman opened the car door with a polite nod. Inside, the lobby bustled with quiet efficiency. Staffers moved with purpose. A wall of framed photographs displayed past projects: homeless shelters, youth centers, renovated schools. Maya slowed as she passed one showing Lucas cutting a ribbon next to a group of single mothers holding house keys. He looked different in it. Less polished. More grounded. "This way," Lucas said, leading her through a glass corridor. "I wanted you to see the community wing." They entered a room still under renovation, unfinished walls, stacks of chairs, boxes of supplies. Sunlight poured in from high windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. "This," Lucas said, "is where I want you." Maya blinked. "You want me in a room full of boxes?" "I want you building something that lives longer than a viral video," he said. "We've had outreach directors before, people with degrees, resumes, polish. But what we haven't had is someone who knows what it's like to sleep in a shelter one night and save a life the next." She turned away from the light, hands stuffed in her jacket pockets. "People are only clapping right now because I survived. They love a survivor, but only as long as you don't remind them they left you behind first." Lucas moved closer, but not too close. "Then maybe it's time someone reminded them gently and powerfully who they owe." She looked up sharply. "I'm not here to make people feel guilty. No, you're here to make them feel responsible." Maya crossed her arms. "Why me?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "Because I've built buildings, raised millions, sat at tables with governors and CEOs, but I've never seen anyone break a wall with a hammer and a heartbeat." Silence held between them, not awkward, just full. Then Maya asked quietly, "What would I do here?" "You'd lead our re-entry program, homeless support, advocacy. You'd help design systems that make sure the next Maya isn't sleeping on a bench when she could be building a city." Her throat tightened. "I don't want a handout," she said. Lucas nodded. "Then take the keys." He handed her a slim folder. Inside was a proposal. Not a contract. Not a check. Just a map. A beginning. Her name typed at the top with purpose. Maya closed the folder slowly. "You're not asking me to take a job," she said. "I'm asking you to take up space," he replied, as someone who earned it. That evening, back at the house, Maya sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the folder. She didn't sign it yet. Not because she didn't want to, but because for the first time in years, she realized she had options, and that was more powerful than a signature. The sun was setting when Dolores knocked softly on Maya's door. "Dinner's on the table, sugar," she called. "If you're up for it." Maya sat on the edge of the bed, folder still in hand, its pages now slightly crinkled from being opened, closed, held, and held again. She glanced at her reflection in the tall mirror across the room, face healing, bruises fading, hair wrapped in a scarf Dolores had folded for her earlier that morning. A stranger, still, but one with straighter posture than the woman from 2 days ago. She stood, adjusted her blouse, and made her way downstairs. The dining room was warm and quiet. The overhead lights dimmed to a soft golden hue. The long wooden table, polished smooth, was set for 3. Cloth napkins. Water glasses already sweating. A ceramic dish sat at the center, steam rising from roasted chicken and sweet potatoes dressed in rosemary and brown sugar. Rolls, still warm from the oven, rested in a basket under a linen towel. Dolores was just placing a bowl of collard greens down when Maya entered. "Perfect timing," Dolores said. "Sit down before the food loses its testimony." Lucas was already at the table, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He looked less like a billionaire and more like a tired single father trying to hold on to grace. "Hope you're hungry," he said. "I'm trying," Maya replied as she slid into a chair. Dolores poured iced tea into tall glasses. "We don't eat with the news on in this house," she said firmly. "And phones stay off the table. If the world wants us, it can wait 20 minutes. Maya smiled faintly. "That sounds peaceful." "It's holy," Dolores corrected. They passed dishes around in practiced silence. Maya watched them move, not stiffly, not rehearsed, just normal. Lucas cut Sophie's chicken into tiny bites, though she wasn't there tonight. Dolores scooped a portion onto Maya's plate without asking if she wanted it, just assuming she deserved it. Maya took a bite, then another. Her eyes widened slightly. Dolores raised an eyebrow. "Good? It tastes like my auntie's house growing up." "Then we're off to a good start," the older woman said. Lucas ate quietly for a few minutes, watching Maya from the corner of his eye, not intrusively, but with interest, like someone studying a language they'd always wanted to understand. "So," he said gently, "how does the job feel now that it's not just on paper?" Maya wiped her mouth. "Heavier." Lucas nodded. "Because it's real. I've never been in a place where people expected me to do more than survive," she said softly. "It's a lot." Dolores made a low sound of agreement. "Weight isn't bad, baby. It just means you're carrying something that matters." Maya glanced down at her plate, then back up. "You really think people will take me seriously?" Lucas leaned forward. "I think they already are." Maya tilted her head. "Only because of what happened. The fire." "No," he said. "That just put a spotlight on what you've already been doing. Quietly. Every day. With no credit. You've been holding up corners of this city. In ways no boardroom ever could." Dolores pointed her fork. "The trick now is making sure they don't use you up and move on." Maya's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Dolores folded her napkin and rested it beside her plate. "This country loves a redemption story, especially when it ends clean. But people forget that healing takes longer than headlines, that just because you walked out of a fire doesn't mean you're not still burning." Lucas looked down, silent. Dolores turned to Maya again. "You don't owe anyone your trauma. You don't have to bleed for them to clap." The room went still. Then Maya, barely above a whisper, said, "No one's ever said that to me before." "Well," Dolores replied, rising from the table, "now someone has." She carried her plate to the sink, then paused. "I'm headed to bed. You two talk if you need to. But don't let the night take more than it gives." She disappeared down the hall, her footsteps soft on the old wood floors. Maya took another sip of her tea, letting the quiet settle again. Lucas broke it. Sophie asked if you were coming back tomorrow. Maya looked up. She drew you a picture. Said she wants to show you how her unicorn survived the fire too. Maya smiled, this time with warmth instead of weariness. That girl's got a spirit. She gets it from her mother, Lucas said, the words slower now, quieter. Sophie's mom. She passed 2 years ago. Car accident. Hit and run. I was working when it happened. I'm sorry. He nodded. Me too. For a moment, grief sat between them, not heavy, not demanding. Just present. Like an extra guest, at the table. Lucas cleared his throat. After that, Sophie got quieter, clingy, scared at night. But yesterday, after you left the hospital, she told me she wants to be like you. Maya's eyes stung. She blinked fast. She shouldn't. I'm still figuring it out. Lucas met her gaze. That's exactly why you're the right person. She looked at her plate. Then at the windows beyond darkness pressing gently against the glass. Outside was still uncertainty. But inside, maybe there was room here. Not permanence. Not yet. But peace. A dinner. A door not closed. I'll come to the foundation tomorrow, she said finally. No promises, but I'll show up. Lucas exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. That's all I ask. Maya stood, gathering her plate. But I'm not wearing a suit. Lucas grinned. Didn't plan on asking. Oh. She smiled, small, genuine, a little fragile. Then, without thinking, she added, and I'm not here to inspire anyone. I just want to build something. He nodded. Good, because that's exactly what we need. As she turned toward the sink, she paused. Lucas, she said softly. Yeah? You ever feel like you're standing in someone else's house, pretending you belong? He didn't answer right away. Then, voice steady. Every day. Until someone reminded me I built the damn house. Maja let out a quiet laugh. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she'd show up. And sometimes, that was the bravest thing a person could do. Maya stepped into the Bennett Foundation's main building for the second time, this time not as a guest, not as a survivor in recovery, but as a woman being watched. She could feel it in the way the receptionist's smile didn't reach her eyes. The way 2 men in suits paused their conversation mid-sentence as she walked past. The way a thin, sharp-looking woman in 4-inch heels narrowed her gaze from the glass-walled conference room. She wasn't paranoid. She was practiced. Good morning, said a young assistant whose name she hadn't caught. Mr. Bennett's running a few minutes behind. You're welcome to wait in the East Lounge. I'll wait here, Maya said simply, planting herself near the elevator banks, arms crossed. She didn't need plush chairs or herbal tea to feel welcome. She needed time, space, the kind not offered, but claimed. Lucas finally arrived 7 minutes later, tie askew, phone pressed to his ear, his expression harried. He paused when he saw her, offered a small wave, and mouthed, 2 minutes. Maya nodded once, her jaw tight. He finished the call, slid the phone into his pocket, and exhaled like he'd been sprinting through an invisible maze. Sorry, he said. Board meeting ran long. Half of them think you're a genius hire. The other half think I've lost my mind. No. Sounds like a pretty even split, she said deadpan. Lucas gave a lopsided grin. Welcome to leadership. They moved together through the hallways, he in his polished shoes, she in her worn flats, their strides different but somehow aligned. He guided her into a large room lined with windows and polished oak furniture. Inside were 9 people. 7 men, 2 women, all white. Maya took it in quickly, suits tailored to intimidation, watches like declarations, smiles that walked the line between performative and skeptical. Lucas spoke first. Everyone, this is Maya William. She'll be heading up the Urban Equity Initiative. There was a beat of silence. Then the woman in heels, the one Maya had clocked earlier, spoke. I thought we were still discussing the qualifications for that role, she said smoothly. Lucas replied, we did, and I made a decision. Maya stepped forward. If it helps, she said, I don't have a polished resume, an Ivy League degree, or a family trust. Murmurs, shifting in chairs. But I've lived the policies you write about. Slept in shelters you fund. Lost jobs because my zip code raised eyebrows. And I walked into a burning building when others filmed it on their phones. The room went silent. I'm not here to impress you, she added. I'm here to do the work. The woman in heels tilted her head. And what makes you think you can lead a multi-million-dollar community effort? Maya met her gaze without blinking. Because I've seen how fast communities fall apart when no one fights for them. Lucas stepped in. And because I trust her, it was the kind of sentence that, when said by a man like Lucas Bennett, shut down further debate. For now, he walked Maya down the hall after the meeting, his energy taut. You were brilliant, he said. Direct, honest, grounded. She didn't smile. They didn't clap. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to adjust. She looked at him. You can't protect me from every sideways glance in this place. I'm not trying to, he said. I'm trying to give you the microphone. The voice is already yours. He led her to her office, a modest corner room with tall windows, 2 chairs, a desk, and an empty bookshelf. You'll need staff, he said. We'll begin recruitment next week. Maya scanned the space. She didn't care about chairs. She cared about reach, about what could grow in this soil. But the truth was, she still felt like she was holding a broom in a boardroom. Lucas lingered in the doorway. Let me know what you need. Maya paused. You want honesty? He nodded. I need time, and I need one person in this building besides you who doesn't see me as a diversity checkbox. Lucas's jaw tightened. I'll make the introductions, starting with Evelyn. Oh. He left, and a few minutes later, an older black woman knocked and entered. Short, broad-shouldered, cornrows tied back, glasses, no nonsense. You must be Maya, she said, voice deep with Georgia roots. I'm Evelyn Rhodes, VP of Housing Grants. Maya stood, shook her hand. I've read about your work. Evelyn snorted. I'm more useful in person. Then, a pause, a look. I saw what you did, Evelyn said, her tone gentler. Not just the fire, the meeting. Thanks. Evelyn stepped closer. You're not alone in this building. Just newer. You'll find your pace. Maya exhaled slowly. Feels like I'm walking barefoot in glass. You are, Evelyn replied. But don't forget people are watching to see if you bleed, not if you dance. So you walk steady, and you don't give them the satisfaction. Later that day, Maya stood by the window in her office and looked down at the city, the rooftops, the alleys, the school buses below. She thought of benches, diners, smells of bleach and burnt coffee, and she thought of the girl who waved dandelions. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the drawing Sophie had given her that morning. A stick-figure woman with wild hair and a cape, standing in front of a burning building, holding hands with a smiling girl. At the bottom, in crayon, Miss Maya saved me. Maya pinned it on the wall, not because she wanted to remember what she did, but to remind herself who she was doing this for. 2 days into the job, Maya had already memorized the way voices changed when she entered a room. Not overt, not cruel, just calculated. Words slowed. Eyes flicked. Smiles hovered a second too long. That morning, she'd overheard someone in the elevator whisper, "She's the one who climbed the building, right? Lucas's charity case?" By noon, someone else had asked if she had experience in budgeting. Their tone dipped in sweetness like honey poured over glass. She didn't respond. Not with anger. Not yet. Instead, she took a breath, counted to 3, and walked back into her office. The drawing from Sophie still hung by the window. Beside it now was a calendar covered in handwritten notes. She was already scheduling meetings with local organizers, drafting outlines for grant approvals, requesting housing site tours. The work, real work, was already stacking, and she welcomed it like a storm. She wanted to drown in usefulness. The knock on her door came sharp, deliberate. Evelyn stepped in, holding a manila folder. "You've got visitors." Maya looked up. "Who?" "A city liaison and a consultant from HUD. They were supposed to meet with me but asked to speak with you directly." "Why?" Evelyn smirked. "Curiosity, I'd guess. Or nerves. Maybe both." Maya stood, smoothed her blouse. "Let's go see." They met in a mid-sized conference room filled with too much glass and not enough comfort. Across the table sat a white man in his 60s clean suit, thinning gray hair, and a Latina woman with sharp eyes and a neat blue blazer. "Miss William," the man said, standing to shake her hand. "Ed Decker, Department of Housing. This is Carla Juarez, from City Outreach." Carla gave a polite nod. "Heard a lot about you. I hope it's not all fire and rubble," Maya said, shaking both their hands. Ed smiled thinly. "Well, let's say it's memorable. They talk numbers first, funding projections, distribution channels, benchmarks for housing transitions." Maya held her own. She spoke plainly, without buzzwords, using stories when necessary. Real names, real stakes. The woman who lived in her car behind the gas station. The boy who missed school every Monday because his shelter shut down Sunday nights for fumigation. Carla took notes. Ed didn't. Then he leaned back, arms crossed. "If I may," he said, "there's concern that your approach might be emotionally driven." Maya tilted her head. "Meaning? You've got the fire, pardon the pun, but this work requires system thinking, data, not just passion." "I understand," Maya said calmly, "but data didn't carry that girl out of the flames." "I did." A quiet tension fell. Then Maya leaned forward, voice steady. "I've lived the systems you manage. I know which doors stick, which hallways stink of mold, which policies help and which bury people. I'm not guessing. I'm remembering." Carla's pen paused mid-sentence. "And if you're worried about emotion," Maya continued, "then maybe ask why your system needed a fire for someone like me to sit at this table." Ed blinked. Carla bit back a smile. Evelyn, who had been standing silently near the door, said nothing, but Maya could feel her pride vibrating in the quiet. The meeting ended with polite nods and promises to reconnect soon. As they walked out, Carla hung back. She touched Maya's arm gently. "That was the most honest thing I've heard in one of these meetings all year." Maya offered a soft smile. "Honesty doesn't always pay." "No," Carla replied, "but it lasts." Back in her office, Maya let herself breathe. The mask she'd worn during the meeting cracked slightly. She sank into her chair and looked out at the city again. It still pulsed, indifferent, persistent, alive. Lucas appeared at the door a few minutes later. "I heard," he said. "Who told you?" "Ed stormed out," he said with a grin. "Said you lectured him like a schoolteacher with a ruler." Maya shrugged. "He deserved worse." Lucas stepped in, closed the door. "You did right, but I want you to know, this is going to get harder. I know. They'll push, doubt you, undercut your authority, not to your face, but behind it. That kind of battle wears people down." "I've been worn down before," Maya replied, "but I'm still here." Lucas studied her face, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. "What's that?" "Access to the side conference rooms, reserved usually for senior execs. If you're going to lead this program, you need access to the full building." She took the key, held it between her fingers like something sacred. "Most people don't get handed keys," she said. "You weren't handed it," Lucas said. "You earned it. We're just catching up." That night, as Maya left the building, the security guard at the front desk gave her a respectful nod. She noticed it. Not the kind you give someone you tolerate, the kind you give someone you follow. On the bus ride home, because she insisted on keeping her place downtown for now, Maya stared out the window and thought about all the doors she'd ever knocked on, waited outside of, been turned away from, and how, just maybe, she was now the one holding them open. Not for applause, not for legacy, but for the next girl standing in smoke, looking for a way through. Saturday morning came quietly.